The ground was frozen, hard as stone, yet Duke's paws toward it like he'd scented fire. The K9’s low growl was the only sound in the clearing, a guttural warning that made Deputy Sam Keller's chest tighten. They'd told him to leash the dog, to move on, that this patch of woods had been combed a dozen times since Officer Mark Halstead vanished 2 winters ago. But Duke wouldn't quit. Then, with a final snap of roots, something metallic flashed in the weak daylight, caked in dirt, rim bent, numbers barely legible. Sam knew the badge before he even touched it. The snow hadn't fallen yet, but the air was full of it, sharp, metallic, and heavy in Sam Keller's lungs as he crouched beside Duke. The dog's nails scraped rock, dirt flying in jagged clumps. Sam reached forward, prying the badge from the frozen earth. The brass was dulled, warped at one edge. Halstead's name was still there, though the engraved letters seemed to carry a weight heavier than the metal itself. "Where'd you find it?" Sheriff Denton's voice came from behind, low and guarded. He was a broad man, face set like the granite hills outside town, and his boots sank deep into the brittle ground. "Right here." Duke wouldn't move, Sam said, brushing soil from the badge. Denton stared at it longer than necessary, jaw working, before slipping it into his coat pocket. "We'll log it back at the station." Sam waited for Sheriff to call it in, maybe order the area taped off. But Denton just stood there, scanning the tree line as if the woods themselves might object. "This spot's already been cleared," Denton finally said. "Probably fell off during the search. Could have been sitting here all this time." Sam's gut tightened. He'd walked these woods during that first frantic week, combed every inch of the trail with Halstead's wife watching from the roadside, her face pale with cold and something darker. He would have seen the badge then. Or, Sam said carefully, someone put it here. The sheriff's gaze was steady, unreadable. "You'd be smart to keep theories to yourself, Keller. Folks in this town like things quiet." The unspoken part hung between them, and so, Back at the station, the badge sat on an evidence table like a piece of bone dredged from a river. Sam tried to log it properly, but the system flagged the case as closed. Halstead's disappearance had been ruled, presumed dead, his file tucked away in the cold case drawer that Denton never opened. Duke paced a kennel behind Sam's desk, restless, ears twitching every time a badge clinked against the evidence tray. "You're not letting this go, are you?" Sam muttered to the dog. Duke whined low in his throat. That night, the bar at Miller's Feed and Spirits was warm, dim, smelling of wood smoke and spilled beer. Sam sat nursing a whiskey when a shadow slid onto the stool beside him. "You were in Denton's woods today," said Lucy Halstead. Her voice was hoarse, a smoker's rasp that didn't match her clean flannel and neat braid. Mark Halstead's widow had the kind of beauty that didn't fade with grief, just sharpened at the edges. Sam hesitated. "You heard about the badge?" "I hear everything," she said. "And I know it wasn't there before. I looked." Sam studied her face. There was no tremble in her voice, no hint she'd been caught off guard. If anything, she seemed expectant. "Then someone planted it," Sam said. Lucy's gaze flicked toward the door. "And I know who." The name she gave him was Earl Bissett, a logger with a reputation for trouble. He'd been fired from Halstead's department years ago after a fight in the locker room left another deputy with a broken jaw. Earl had been living out by the ridge since, nursing grudges and cheap liquor. Sam didn't tell Denton. Instead, he drove out the next afternoon, snow beginning to spit from a low sky. The ridge was a jagged spine of rock and pines, the kind of place you could scream and no one would hear. Earl's cabin leaned sideways under its own weight. Smoke drifted from a rusted stovepipe. "Bissett!" Sam called, boots crunching through the frost. A shape moved behind the curtain. Then the door opened and Earl filled the frame. Bearded, heavy-shouldered, eyes the cold gray of river ice. "You lost, deputy," he said. Sam glanced at the dirt pile beside the cabin. Fresh, damp despite the freeze. Duke sniffed it, tail stiff. "Halstead's badge turned up," Sam said. "You wouldn't know anything about that." Earl's grin was small and dangerous. "If I did, I'd tell you to keep your nose out of it. And your dog, too." Duke growled, low and deep. Earl didn't flinch. Back at his truck, Sam jotted notes in his pad. His hand shook more than the cold justified. Earl had looked at him like a man holding a card Sam couldn't see yet. That night, Lucy called. "You shouldn't have gone out there," she said without preamble. "How do you—" "I told you I hear things. Earl's not the kind to warn twice." "Why give me his name, then?" There was a long silence. "Because Mark trusted you, more than he trusted Denton." Something in her tone made Sam's skin prickle. It wasn't just grief. It was something closer to guilt. The next morning, Duke refused to eat. He paced until Sam clipped the leash, then pulled hard toward the woods, the same patch where the badge had been found. Duke dug again, frantic. Sam knelt, fingers numb as he scraped away dirt. His nails hit something soft beneath the frozen crust. He stopped breathing. It was fabric, blue, a shred of uniform. By the time he looked up, the shadows between the trees had shifted. Someone was watching, and whoever it was didn't want him digging deeper. If you want more of this story, stay close. Small towns bury more than the truth, and sometimes the ground gives it back. The cold was biting harder now, the kind that sinks into your bones and stays there. Sam kept his hand pressed over the scrap of fabric as Duke's growl deepened, echoing off the trees like a warning bell. He could feel eyes on him, close enough to hear the crunch of his boots in the frost, close enough to smell the faint curl of cigarette smoke on the air. "Show yourself," Sam called, his voice steady though his pulse was a drumbeat in his ears. No answer. The trees swallowed sound, the silence too thick to be natural. Duke lunged toward the shadows, barking sharp and loud. A branch snapped somewhere ahead, and Sam caught the fleeting shape of a man in a dark jacket moving through the undergrowth. "Sheriff Denton?" Sam called, but the figure didn't turn, didn't even slow. Sam considered chasing, but if he left now, whatever he'd found in the dirt could disappear. The woods had a way of swallowing things whole. He knelt again, brushing frost from the fabric. More of it was buried, heavy with frozen soil. He tugged, and the earth gave a little more, revealing a seam, a torn patch where a nameplate should have been. Halstead's uniform. Sam swallowed hard, stood, and clipped Duke's leash. They backed out of the woods together, never turning their backs until they hit the trail. At the station, Sam laid the fabric on his desk. It was dark with dirt and age, but unmistakable. He picked up the phone to log it with the evidence clerk. Before he could dial, Sheriff Denton walked in. "Found something else?" Denton asked, his tone too casual for the weight of his words. Sam hesitated. "Yeah, piece of uniform. Same spot." Denton's eyes flicked to the fabric, then back to Sam. "I'll take it from here. With respect, Sheriff, we should open the scene. There might be—" "No!" The word came sharp, final. "You've been spending too much time chasing ghosts, Keller. This town doesn't need more rumors. It needs stability. Or it needs a truth." Denton's jaw tightened. Careful. He reached for the fabric. Sam didn't move his hand. "If this is Halstead's, I'm taking it to the state lab myself." For a long moment, they stared at each other, the air between them heavy with something close to hostility. Then Denton gave a slow smile that didn't touch his eyes. "You do that, Keller. But remember, out here, when a man digs too deep, the ground has a way of caving in." That night, Sam drove to Lucy Halstead's house with a uniform scrap in a sealed bag. Her porch light was off, but she answered the door quickly, as if she'd been standing just behind it. Her eyes flicked the bag in his hand. "You found more." Sam stepped inside. The house smelled faintly of cedar and something warm. Coffee, maybe. "Lucy," he said quietly, "why did you really send me to Earl Bissett?" Her hands tightened on the edge of the kitchen counter. "Because Mark told me, if anything happened to him, it'd be Earl's fault." That's not much to go on. Mark and Earl hated each other. You know that. But the week before he disappeared, Mark said Earl was working with someone in the department. Said they were covering up something big. Sam's pulse picked up. Did he say what? No. He just said if he disappeared, it wouldn't be an accident. Later, parked in his truck outside Lucy's house, Sam sat in the dark, turning over her words. A corrupt deputy. Halstead's warning. The badge. The uniform scrap. Denton's refusal to investigate. He almost didn't hear the crunch of tires on gravel until a set of headlights swept over his truck. He ducked slightly, watching as an old green pickup rolled past. Earl Bissett behind the wheel. He didn't stop, didn't even glance at the house. But Sam's gut told him it wasn't coincidence. The next morning, Duke was pacing again. Sam gave in, taking him back to the woods. The air was colder, the sky heavy with snow clouds. Duke didn't lead him to the badge site. Instead, the dog pulled toward a different patch of ground, 50 yards deeper into the trees. The digging was slower here, the ground frozen nearly solid. Sam knelt to help, breaking the crust with his gloved hands. Beneath the frost, the dirt was darker, wet even in this cold. His fingers hit something hard. A boot, still laced, still attached to something below. Sam froze. Duke whined softly, pressing his nose into the ground. He didn't have time to think. The snap of a branch behind him made him spin. Earl Bissett stood 10 feet away, a shotgun slung loose in his hands. "You're in the wrong place, Keller," Earl said. His voice was calm, almost friendly. "Is that where you put him?" Sam asked, nodding to the ground. Earl's mouth curved in a humorless smile. "You think I'm that stupid? If I killed Halstead, I wouldn't bury him in my own backyard." "So you didn't kill him?" Earl's eyes narrowed. "I didn't say that." Before Sam could move, Duke lunged forward, snarling. Earl stepped back, the gun shifting just enough for Sam to take a step closer. "Put the gun down," Sam said. "We can talk." "No, Keller, we can't. You're about to dig up something that's kept this town safe for 2 years. And you don't even know it." "Safe from what?" Earl's gaze shifted past Sam, into the trees. For a moment, Sam thought he saw fear there. But then Earl stepped back, melted into the woods, and was gone. Sam's hands shook as he pulled his phone from his pocket, snapping a quick photo of the boot before covering it again. Without a full team, without backup, he wasn't digging farther. Not here. Not alone. As he turned to leave, Duke paused, staring into the woods where Earl had vanished. The dog's ears twitched, and he let out one short bark, sharp like a signal. Back at the station, Sam printed the photo, sliding it into a folder with the badge and uniform scrap. He didn't log any of it into the department system. If Den wasn't on it, and Sam was starting to believe he was, then putting it on record would mean losing it. Instead, he called someone he hadn't spoken to in years. Detective Reyes came the voice on the other end. "Maria, it's Sam Keller." A pause. "Didn't think I'd hear from you again. Last time we talked, you told me to stay the hell out of your county." "I need your help," Sam said, off the record. That night, the snow started. Big. Heavy flakes drifting slow at first, then falling thick enough to turn the roads white. Sam sat in his truck outside the station, watching through the windshield as Sheriff Denton came out, talking on his phone. He didn't look happy. Duke shifted in the passenger seat, his nose twitching at something Sam couldn't smell. Inside the station, Sam locked his office door and spread the evidence on his desk. The badge, the fabric scrap, the photo of the boot, and one more thing, an old report from Halstead's file. Something Sam had skimmed before, but never really read. A list of calls Mark Halstead had answered in the 2 weeks before he vanished. The last one was at an address on the edge of town, an address Sam recognized. Lucy Halstead's. Sam leaned back in his chair, a cold weight settling in his gut. If Mark's last call was to his own house, then Lucy had been the last person to see him alive. Snow muffled the world, turning the streets into pale, silent corridors. Sam's truck idled at the edge of town, heater hissing, while Duke sat alert in the passenger seat. The report lay open on the dash, its last line underlined twice. Call number 274, disturbance 192, Ridgeview Lane. Officer Halstead dispatched. Status, cleared. Ridgeview Lane. Lucy Halstead's address. Sam stared at the page until the ink seemed to bleed into the paper. It was one thing to suspect Denton or Earl, men who carried their malice plainly, but Lucy had been the grieving widow, the one who claimed to want answers, unless her version of the truth was the only one that kept her safe. Lucy's house sat back from the road, half hidden by pine trees bent under the weight of snow. Her porch light was off again, though a faint orange glow pulsed behind the curtains. Sam knocked. She opened the door slower this time, wearing a thick sweater, hair loose around her shoulders. "Sam, it's late." "I found something," he said, stepping inside before she could refuse. Her eyes dropped to the folder under his arm. More of Mark. Sam set the folder on her kitchen table, opening it to the badge, the fabric scrap, the photo of the boot. "That's what's left of him. But what I want to know is, why was his last call to you?" She didn't look at the evidence. "You went through his file." "Answer me, Lucy." Her gaze hardened. "He came home that night because I called him. I told him to come without his radio." "Why?" "Because he'd found something he wasn't supposed to, and he said we couldn't talk at the station." Sam's pulse quickened. "What did he find?" Lucy hesitated. Mark had been tracking a shipment that came through town. Drugs, cash, maybe both. But it wasn't just outsiders moving it. It was someone in the department. "Denton," Sam said without thinking. She didn't confirm. Mark was scared. I'd never seen him like that. When he came through the door, he wasn't wearing his badge. Said if things went bad, I was to tell everyone he'd left me. Walked out. That way, they wouldn't come after me. And then Earl showed up." The way she said his name made Sam's stomach knot. "He and Mark argued," Lucy continued. "I stayed in the kitchen. I heard the back door slam. By the time I got outside, they were gone." "You didn't call it in?" Her eyes glistened. "The sheriff was part of it, Sam. I knew if I called Denton, Mark was dead before sunrise. I thought maybe Earl took him to scare him. But then days passed, and I realized he wasn't coming back." Duke's head lifted suddenly, ears swiveling toward the front door. His low growl rolled through the quiet house. "What is it?" Lucy asked, her voice thin. Sam moved to the window, peeling back the curtain. Headlights. Creeping down the snow-packed driveway. A county SUV. Sheriff Denton. Sam shut the folder and stuffed it into his coat. "Back door," he told Lucy. She didn't argue. They slipped out into the snow, Duke trotting ahead, his paws soundless in the drift. Sam led them to the tree line, crouching low as Denton's truck door creaked open. The sheriff's voice carried through the cold. "Lucy, we need to talk." Sam's breath came out in clouds. If Denton found them, there'd be no arrest, no booking, just another disappearance. They kept low, moving deeper into the trees until the glow of the house was gone. The snow was deeper here, slowing them. Duke stopped twice, nose to the ground, tail stiff. Finally, Sam found the trail, a faint snowmobile track cutting through the woods toward the ridge. He knew where it led. Earl Bissett's cabin. The smoke from Earl's stovepipe rose black against the snow. Sam kept Lucy behind him as he approached, Duke close at his side. Earl opened the door before Sam could knock, eyes narrowing at the sight of Lucy. "Didn't expect the two of you together," Earl said. "We need to talk," Sam said. "That makes one of us." Sam stepped inside anyway. The cabin was cramped, warm from the stove, but smelled of unwashed clothes and oil. "You were there the night Halstead vanished," Sam said. "Lucy heard you." Earl didn't deny it. "He got himself killed. I tried to keep him quiet, but Denton had other plans." "What plans?" Lucy's voice cracked on the words. Earl's gaze flicked to her. "He wasn't supposed to make it past the river. Sheriff said it had to look like an accident." Sam stepped closer. "Where is he, Earl?" Earl's lips twisted. "Out there in the snow, Keller, where the ground doesn't thaw until spring." "That's not good enough. It's all you're getting. Unless—" Earl leaned back, studying Sam. "Unless you can make Denton disappear before he does it to you." Lucy flinched. "You want us to kill him?" "I'm saying," Earl replied, "there's no badge or court in this county that can touch him. You want justice for Mark. It won't come in uniform." Sam felt the heat from the stove against his back, the cold from Lucy's stare in front of him. This was the line. Step over it, and he wasn't a deputy anymore. Outside, Duke barked suddenly. 3 sharp bursts. Earl moved to the window, pulling the curtain. Too late. Headlights. More than one set, cutting through the falling snow. Denton had found them. Earl reached for his shotgun. Sam pulled his own sidearm, moving Lucy toward the back door. The first shot blew out the front window. Glass sprang across the stove. Snow whirled in on the wind. Sam fired back toward the lights, just enough to make them duck. Earl returned fire, his shotgun roaring in the close air. "Move!" Sam shouted to Lucy. They burst into the trees, Duke leaping ahead, his bark echoing through the night. The gunfire faded behind them, replaced by the crunch of boots in pursuit. Sam's breath burned in his lungs as they climbed the ridge, snow dragging at their legs. Finally, they reached the clearing, bare except for a mound of frozen earth. Sam knew it before he touched it, the boot he'd seen in the photo. Duke began to dig, claws tearing at the crust. Sam dropped to his knees, helping, until the shape beneath emerged. A body, curled on its side, face half frozen but still recognizable. Mark Halstead. Lucy fell to her knees beside him, her breath breaking in the cold air. Sam stood, turning toward the sound of boots closing in. Denton stepped into the clearing, rifle raised, 2 deputies behind him. "Step away from him, Keller," Denton called. "This doesn't have to go bad for you." "You killed him," Sam said. Denton's mouth curled. He was going to ruin this town. "You think the county survives without the money coming through here? You think your paycheck does?" Lucy rose, her hands balled into fists. "You murdered your own deputy." "No," Denton said flatly. "I saved us all." Sam's grip tightened on his sidearm. For a moment, the clearing was silent but for the wind. Duke stood between him and Denton, hackles raised. Then Earl's voice came from the trees. "Drop it, Denton." The sheriff froze. Earl stepped out, shotgun aimed square at Denton's head. "You don't walk away from this," Earl said. In the second that followed, the air seemed to thicken. Denton's rifle dipped. Sam stepped forward, cuffing him as Earl kept watch. When it was done, Earl lowered the shotgun. "You won't thank me for this." "Wasn't planning to," Sam said. Earl gave a humorless grin, turned, and vanished into the trees. By dawn, Denton was in a state-holding cell. The other deputies scattered. Halstead's body was taken out of the woods under a white sheet. Lucy stood by the road, snow clinging to her hair. "You found him," she said quietly. Sam nodded. "Now what?" she asked. He looked toward the woods, where Duke sat watching the tree lean, ears twitching at sounds only he could hear. "Now," Sam said, "we bury the dead, and we keep digging for the living." The wind moved through the pines, soft but cold, and the 3 of them, man, woman, and dog, stood together in the snow, knowing some truths never really stayed buried.